Max Verstappen gives his brutal opinion on Red Bull's underwhelming performance. Lewis Hamilton talks about the upgrades Russell has on the car, and data shows Ferrari is not the fastest car despite getting pole position. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Max Verstappen expressed his dissatisfaction with the performance of his Red Bull RB20 after securing the 6th position during the Monaco qualifying session, comparing it unfavorably to a go-kart. Since Sergio Perez faced elimination in Q1 and will have to start from the P18 spot, Verstappen carried Red Bull's hopes during Q3. However, he missed the opportunity to set a final lap time due to hitting the barrier at the first turn, relegating him to the 6th position on the starting grid. Verstappen delivered a scathing assessment of the Red Bull RB20, stating that it felt like driving a go-kart with inadequate suspension and dampers. He struggled to navigate the curbs and expressed disappointment with the team's performance, acknowledging that their limitations were already evident before the weekend. During an interview with Sky F1 after qualifying, Verstappen clarified that while his position didn't disappoint him, the overall performance did. He found it challenging to handle the curbs in the middle sector and likened the experience to driving a go-kart without proper suspension or dampers. Despite feeling comfortable in the high-speed corners, the car's performance suffered significantly in the low-speed sections. Verstappen emphasized the team's struggle on bumpy tracks, expressing concerns about future races where their limitations over bumps and curbs could become evident once again. He acknowledged that overtaking on Monaco's tight and twisty track during the Grand Prix would be arduous. Looking ahead, Verstappen worried about upcoming tracks that posed similar challenges, where riding curbs and coping with bumps would be crucial. He acknowledged that the team lacked pace and qualifying performance, making it difficult to gain an advantage or execute overtaking maneuvers. Nevertheless, he expressed determination to persevere and see how things unfold. Red Bull has emerged victorious in the last 3 Monaco GPs, with Verstappen securing 2 of those victories. Charles Leclerc has lived up to expectations to take pole position in Monaco. The Ferrari driver scored his 3rd P1 in qualifying in Monte Carlo and held off surprise attacks from Mclaren and Max Verstappen to secure his first pole since Las Vegas 2023. Ferrari was the team to beat all weekend. Only Red Bull, with Max Verstappen and Mercedes in the hands of Lewis Hamilton, seemed a serious threat to the Italians until qualifying. But the Maranello team had an unwanted guest in the fight for the pole. That guest was Oscar Piastri, with the McLaren, who joined the battle in a real way at the last minute and almost put the Monegasque in trouble. In fact, the ideal qualifying lap was that of the Australian, who had more than 0.2 of a second to squeeze out and take the pole position. Despite this, Leclerc secured another pole in Monaco after 2 great laps in Q3. The Ferrari driver was the favorite after a very solid Friday and Saturday morning and finished the job with a great final push to avoid the surprise of Oscar Piastri and McLaren. The MCL38 was quicker than the SF24 overall, but the Ferrari's mechanical grip and traction were superior. We can see this, for example, just at the entrance of the tunnel and in the slowest part of the circuit. The McLaren reaches higher speeds in the slow corner, but then loses time on the corner exit, unlike the Ferrari. In addition, Leclerc's less aggressive driving style, also favored by the great stability of the Ferrari, has allowed the Monegasque to take the pole. The Ferrari driver was only quickest in Sector 3, but completed a very complete and solid lap with no mistakes to be the fastest overall. Oscar Piastri had to risk more in the final corners to try to put the time delta in his favor. Once again, McLaren was the fastest team in qualifying, but failed to achieve the perfect lap in Q3. Lando Norris also had a better ideal lap than Carlos Sainz. McLaren could have been P1 and P3, but will have to settle for P2 and P4. Even so, Leclerc's pole is tremendously deserved, as the Ferrari driver has done a very complete lap to compensate for the losses in Sector 1 with Mercedes and Sector 2 with McLaren. Red Bull succumbs to McLaren and Ferrari improvements. Max Verstappen could only manage P6 after missing his final Q3 attempt by taking too many risks and hitting the wall at the exit of Turn 1. The Dutchman, who had secured P3 at 0.149s off Leclerc with a great Sector 1 on his first try, didn't have a final lap to fight for the pole, and Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, and George Russell all improved their times, demoting him to P6. As usual in free practice, the Red Bull was only superior to Ferrari in Sector 1. From then on, the SF24's great slow corner exit, traction, and top speed proved that the RB20 was no longer the benchmark of the grid. Also, like Piastri, Verstappen had to be much more aggressive than Leclerc with a more manageable car and less pressure at the end of Sector 3. Both Ferrari and McLaren already have a car with more strengths than Red Bull, which needs external elements such as Nico Hülkenberg's slipstreaming at Imola to be at the top. If you are enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I have a big F1 merch giveaway I'll be doing when we get to 1,000, so be sure to be subbed. Lewis Hamilton has disclosed that at the Monaco Grand Prix, George Russell is the solely using Mercedes' upgraded front wing. This revelation comes after Hamilton's recent defeat in the qualifying battle between the teammates. Although Mercedes encountered a challenging start to the season, they displayed improved speed during practice in Monte Carlo, with Hamilton consistently ranking in the top 3. During qualifying, however, the 7-time world champion had to settle for 7th place. Russell, on the other hand, secured 5th place, outperforming Hamilton in 7 out of the first 8 races of the F1 2024 season. Hamilton attributes his latest defeat to Russell's utilization of the new front wing, stating that he automatically lost 0.2 heading into qualifying. When asked about his disappointment with his grid position, Hamilton expressed his regret, acknowledging that things were looking promising based on previous performance. Despite the team's extensive efforts to enhance the car, using upgrades in the last 2 races, only Russell possesses the new component. Hamilton anticipated the challenge of out-qualifying Russell, given this disadvantage, but remained positive about the introduction of upgrades. However, the automatic gap he experiences during qualifying is frustrating and perplexing, leaving him without an answer. While Mercedes has made progress after a difficult start to the season, Hamilton believes Russell's 0.3 deficit to Charles Leclerc's pace-setting Ferrari would be amplified on more conventional circuits. Furthermore, Hamilton concedes that he is unlikely to challenge Russell in qualifying for the remainder of the F1 2024 season. Regarding the significance of the Monaco Grand Prix for Mercedes, Hamilton believes it could be a turning point for the team. Despite feeling closer to their competitors this weekend and the car performing better than in previous years, Hamilton recognizes the substantial gap of 3.5 at Monaco and even more elsewhere. He stresses the need for continuous effort and the anticipation of gradual improvement as more upgrades are introduced throughout the year. Hamilton doesn't foresee surpassing Russell in qualifying this year, but maintains a positive outlook on their race performance. When asked why he expects not to challenge Russell in qualifying for the entire season, Hamilton responds with a smile, stating, "We'll see." Sergio Perez expressed his disappointment with his performance in the qualifying session for the Monaco Grand Prix, calling it a total disaster. This marked the 2nd consecutive race in which the Red Bull driver failed to make it to Q3. After securing only 11th place in the previous weekend's qualifying at Imola, Perez faced another setback by falling out in Q1, lining up in the 18th position for Sunday's race in Monte Carlo. He was ahead of only the Sauber drivers, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. Additionally, Perez was 0.040 seconds slower than Williams driver Logan Sargent. Red Bull's reigning 3-time world champion, Max Verstappen, also encountered difficulties in Monaco, managing only 6th place on the starting grid. Following the disappointment of Q1, Perez attributed his failure to progress to traffic issues at the hairpin section. However, he acknowledged that both he and Red Bull struggled to find the right setup with the RB20 car throughout the weekend. Perez stated, "We've been struggling all weekend, trying various adjustments with the car. Despite our efforts, we couldn't establish a comfortable rhythm during qualifying, resulting in a significant gap initially." Perez further explained that on his final lap, when things were looking promising, he encountered traffic between turns 6 and 7. This hindered his progress by a few tenths of a second, ultimately causing him to miss out on advancing. He noted that he was half a second behind the fastest time, highlighting how crucial the margins were in such a competitive field. When asked about the potential outcome if he hadn't encountered traffic on his final Q1 lap, Perez believed that reaching Q3 was definitely within reach. He emphasized that the narrow gaps in performance meant that a perfect lap would have dramatically altered the final result. Perez expressed optimism about achieving a top 5 finish, citing their P5 performance in FP3 earlier that day. However, he ultimately labeled his qualifying experience as a total disaster. It's worth noting that Perez faced a similar setback in Monte Carlo last year when he crashed at Sainte-Devote mere minutes into the qualifying session, failing to progress beyond Q1. This mistake marked the beginning of a 5-race streak without a Q3 appearance. As a result, Perez's mid-season struggles put his Red Bull seat in jeopardy. At 34 years old, he is currently in the final year of his existing contract with Red Bull. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. Now watch this video next to get the latest F1 news before the race.